In this video, I'm going to take a look at Pentax's DA 50mm f1.8 lens. I've wanted to try this lens ever since it came out, because despite its lightweight build and relatively low price new, it's had some great compliments from owners. They say it produces the sort of results that you'd expect from a much more expensive lens. So this lens could tick a lot of boxes, if you don't want to, or can't afford to, buy an expensive, bulky, heavy, new portrait-style prime. But how does the lens really perform in practice? In the video, I'll give you my opinion on its performance using Pentax's K-mount cameras, including full-frame and APS-C cameras. And I'll also explain how you can use this lens on non-K-mount cameras, in this case Sony E-mount cameras. The lens doesn't have an aperture ring, but you can in fact adjust the aperture using a ring on an adapter. Addicts aware, buying the right K-mount adapter will open you up to the wonderful world of some great new and old K-mount lenses. I'll go through the specs and adapter options, and then quickly get onto the lens's performance in a variety of situations. The lens was launched in 2012 and is still available. My copy is new, kindly provided by Ricoh Imaging Europe. The lens has been dubbed a plastic fantastic, or the nifty 50 on Pentax forums, given its lightweight plastic body and optical performance. I personally don't mind a new, well-made plastic-bodied lens for personal use, and this lens does feel well-made and durable. The build means it only weighs 122 grams. That's very light. 122 grams is nothing compared to some of the heavy metal Fast 50 beasts out there. The lens is described as an APS-C lens, but it works well on a full-frame camera, without vignetting if you stop down, or you're focusing closer up wide open. Focusing to infinity, as I've done here with the sky, the lens does vignette on my Sony a7 IV, wider open, adding an obvious shade to the corners, but this goes as you stop down. And I'd hardly ever take landscape-style shots wide open, so I don't think this is a problem. In close-up, wide-open compositions such as these ones, and many others I've taken, the vignette on full frame is hardly noticeable at all. These images are straight out of the full-frame camera. It's an autofocus lens, but only of course on Pentax cameras. The lens has 6 elements in 5 groups, a classic Fast 50 design, and a minimum focus distance of 0.45 meters. There are 7 rounded aperture blades, which as we'll see, produce nicely rounded out-of-focus highlights for the wider open stops. The lens doesn't have a separate aperture ring, so on Pentax cameras you need to control the f-stop settings in camera. This doesn't mean, however, that you can't use and adjust the f-stops on non-Pentax cameras that can't communicate with the lens. I own some great Pentax glass without aperture rings, including this excellent DA 35mm f2.8 macro, one of the very best of its kind. To adapt these lenses to, say, Sony cameras, I use this K to E mount adapter made by K&F Concept, and it wasn't very expensive. The adapter has a ring that links to the Pentax's aperture control lever, so you can open and close the aperture blades. You won't know the exact f-stop setting, but it's pretty easy to tell where you are by looking at the position of the blades. You can use this adapter for all kinds of K-mount lenses, including Pentax lenses with aperture rings or without aperture rings, and as I've mentioned, it'll open you up to the wonderful world of Pentax primes and zooms. One of the big advantages of using a Fast 50 is the narrow depth of field and lovely smooth out-of-focus rendering the lens can produce wide open, or at least it should be able to if the lens is any good. And this Pentax DA is excellent at subject isolation, and the bokeh is smooth in all but the busiest backgrounds. But even with busy backgrounds, I think the bokeh can be rather beautiful. What I particularly like about Pentax lenses, and always have, back to the early Takemer lenses, now well over 50 years old, is how painterly the bokeh can look wide open. There's something about the rendering that appeals to my more artistic side. The bokeh is not as clearly defined as some other lens designs. It's more watercolory and washy, with even a hint of swirl, if I could put it like that. I know some photographers prefer to stop the lens down a little to show more details in the image, and I'll get onto that in a moment. But visually, I really like these wide open results. My view is you really don't need a $1,000 ultra-fast new lens to give you a more artistic look to your photos. Plastic Fantastic is indeed an appropriate name for this lens. In terms of sharpness, I would describe the lens as reasonably sharp wide open. I have a lot of other fast 50s to compare with this one, including some much more expensive ones, and this is in the middle, not the sharpest, nor the softest wide open. Images do show some ghosting and glow around brighter in-focus areas closer up, similar to many other fast 50s, and this can distract from sharpness. However, this can also be an advantage for portraits, where the slightly glowing rendering can be complementary to your subjects, people or pets. The lens doesn't like extremely bright light in wide open compositions, so you have to be careful where you point the lens and be careful to manage the exposure settings. The lens does produce purple fringing in these bright light situations wide open, but it's the kind of fringing that is easy to remove in post-processing. I found it hard to get the lens to flare extravagantly wide open. Stop down, the lens produces nice sunbursts and some more artifacts, as you'd expect. Back to sharpness and stopping down a little, and the lens sharpens up very impressively. Here's an example comparison taken on a Sony a7 IV. The stop-down image on the right still has quite large bokeh bubbles, so it's not stopped down a great deal. Taking a close-up crop of the ladybird, we call them ladybirds in the UK, and then crop even closer again, the increase in detail stopping down is excellent. And you still get an attractive out-of-focus blur and bubbles in the image. Wide open, the lens produces lovely bubbles from strong out-of-focus highlights. Using some coloured fairy lights, here's the effect of the lens's aperture blades as you stop them down. The lens retains nice rounded shapes to those highlights for the first few stops. The 7 blades start to show at around f3.2, but not drastically. Here's an example of the rendering when you get to f3.5 from wide open. And then on through the stops to stop right down, where you can see starbursts created by the blades. Turning to colour rendering, and I've enjoyed the colours the lens produces both wide open and stop down. To me, this is another of Pentax lens's strengths, and this lens produces what I describe as classic Pentax colours, with especially attractive blues and reds. Using the lens as a standard walk-around lens, it performs well. The colours and details are very good. This photo is straight out of full-frame camera. As you can see, there's plenty of scope for zooming in and cropping as well. The Pentax DA50 f1.8 comes with a strong optical heritage, dating back to the fine fast 50s, first produced under the Takuma, then Pentax brand names. This little lens does not disappoint. It's an impressive performer for its size and price. It'll give you everything you want from a new portrait-style fast 50. Indeed, it's a lot more versatile than just a portrait lens. I guess you could say it definitely punches above its weight. I have no hesitation in recommending it. If you use a Pentax camera and you're looking for a new, lightweight, good value, autofocus fast 50, or you'd like to try some new Pentax glass on your non-Pentax camera, this just might be the best place to start. And it's also a good starting point for people who want to buy some new camera gear to trade up from smartphone photography. Thank you for watching. All comments will be most welcome, and until the next time, all the best.